Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to be continuing my series to tell you about the story of how I went from being a self-taught software developer to a professional software engineer. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you about what I studied in college and how I took kind of a windy road to get there, along with some career setbacks along the way. Being so interested in this computer programming field, I wanted to go to Purdue University to learn more computer stuff, of course. I went into this program called Computer Information Systems, which was a hybrid of computer programming and business skills. And it sounded like a good match for what I was interested in, because those were the two things I wanted to do. I wanted to run my own business and I wanted to create software. I cannot tell you how much of a disappointment college was for me once I got there. I thought I'd be learning all these new interesting things up my game, and I find out that I'm actually way ahead of the intro level classes that they have me signed up for. There were a few introductory level, like 101 classes that you had the option to test out of. One of them was about the history of the internet. The professor was like, well, there's a test out option for this class. And I've only passed one person in like 15 years, so there's unlikely that you're going to be a person to test out of this class. So what I did was I took the book for the class. The test was like on like a Tuesday, and this was like the first weekend going to college. I dug through that entire book, just skimmed through all the material. It was basically all this stuff about like how the internet was created and what the World Wide Web was, and the history of computers. I was like, I already know most of this stuff. Whatever I didn't know, I just crammed in my head from that book. It was like I went in the first week cramming. So I walked in there Tuesday, passed the test. So I knocked out one college course just in the first week. And then there was another course. It was Introduction to Programming. I did the same thing again. You could test out of that class. The test was just asking you things like, what is an object? What is a pointer? Really basic stuff that you have to know to get anything done in a programming language. I totally aced it, and I passed the Programming 101 course, and I didn't even have to take the class. But I'll tell you what, the thing that did get me excited, the thing that I really felt like I was learning stuff about, was actually the business side of those classes, because that was my first exposure to accounting. So there was a Financial Accounting 101 class, and that was the class that I enjoyed the most in my first year of college. It taught me about balance sheets and income statements and cash flow, how to track all the money you're making in your business. I ate up that material with the same amount of vigor that I did the computer stuff. I wanted to learn everything about accounting and how it works. And then one day, I was sitting in class before class began. There were a couple other students sitting not far away from me. I could hear their conversation, and they were talking about what they wanted to do after school. One dude said something like, I haven't decided yet if I want to be a code monkey or a wire monkey. It just went through my head. I don't want to be a monkey of any sort. I do not. I want to run the damn business. I want to own the place. Yeah, I kind of fell short of that goal because I'm kind of a code monkey right now. But I thought, I don't want to be a code monkey or a wire monkey. I want to learn more of this finance stuff. So that's where I took a detour in my career, and I switched from Purdue to Indiana University, and I went to the business school. I wanted to major in finance. So while I was having this existential crisis about what I wanted to major in school, I had another important thing going for me, and that was summer internships. Because building your own online business in the early 2000s as a high schooler was a fairly impressive accomplishment, I was able to get a few scholarships. The most notable scholarship that I got was something called the Colonel Henry Crown Scholarship. Now, Colonel Henry Crown, this billionaire who a long time ago started a company that sold building materials to the U.S. government. This scholarship was something that his family gives away in the Chicago area, and I happened to be a winner of that scholarship that year. One of the things that you get with the scholarship is an opportunity to work as an intern at their headquarters in downtown Chicago. Now, most of the people who show up there as interns, they try to stick them into areas that would be related to whatever they're studying in school. For me, because I had this website experience, they put me in the IT department. And at first I was doing IT help desk. So I was going around with the guys that fixed the broken computers or they set up somebody's workstation. It was pretty boring stuff. But then the head of the department was like, hey, Winston, we got this application that we use for tech support throughout the whole company. Basically, it was a ticketing system. It's something like what Zendesk does today, but this was before Zendesk was around. They had a custom application doing that. The application is very poorly designed. It just was clunky. It didn't work very well. So I looked at the code and I was like, oh, okay, this is ASP. I've dabbled in PHP for my Whack Productions website before. I think I could do something with this. So I refactored the entire application that summer. And the site that had many like error pages and bugs and stuff like that and didn't have a very good interface, I redesigned this whole darn thing. I had like email links. I improved those so that like you get an email with your ticket and you could like view the case history. Like I had a whole bunch of features to it as well. And they were really impressed with what I did. They were happy to have me back like the following summer. I did build some good resume experience working at that company. That was the first time I worked in a corporate setting and was able to put on my resume that I did application development in an IT department. So I got that programming experience during the summertime, and then I went to Indiana University, switched majors in the middle, and I got my finance degree. I didn't want to work in the IT industry anymore because back in like 2005, 2006, one thing that was going on that IT workers and programmers were really worried about was offshoring of their jobs. The rhetoric that you heard back then was very similar to what you hear today about AI taking people's jobs. But the only difference was that people were afraid that instead of the computer, it's going to be offshore to India. This was a real concern for me. I didn't want to be in an industry where I'd be so easily replaced. I thought finance would be a safer place to be. I wanted to work on Wall Street. So I worked really hard to get a job in an investment bank. I wanted to be an analyst. So I found a role as an equity research associate at an investment bank. In 2008, I moved to New York City, all excited about my new job. I was going to get rich, and then the great financial crisis happened, and lots of people lost their jobs. And I lost my job too at that time. After seeing that happen and how these investment bankers that they glorified at the university and thought were so smart that they not only drove their own businesses under, like Lehman Brothers, but they almost destroyed the whole U.S. economy. And then seeing Bernie Madoff, the Galleon, other hedge funds just blowing up and all this corruption happening at the time. Occupy Wall Street was just starting. I just didn't have the appetite to do it anymore. And not to mention the culture in working in an investment bank just wasn't for me because they want people to be there in the office and just live in the office. But I value my freedom and my time. That culture just didn't mesh well with me. So I took this detour to go to a finance career. It ended up being a dead end, which was kind of ironic because I tried to avoid software development because I was worried that would be a dead end. Instead, it was going the finance route. But anyway, so I had to retool, reinvent myself. It was really really tough to find a job back in 2009 and 2010. But I was fortunately able to get a job in the healthcare IT industry. I worked for one of the major vendors of hospital software in Chicago. It wasn't a programming role, it was a corporate finance role. So I thought that was really cool. I got to work in Chicago again, in the merchandise mart, in the corporate finance department. And I was assigned for a very specific role to work on this billing project. I was actually hired as a contractor, and I was part of a team. What we were supposed to be doing was doing a major auditing of their billing system. They really screwed up with their enterprise customers. They weren't sending out bills that were correct and in a timely fashion. The company actually was missing out on millions of dollars of revenue based on poor billing practices. So my audit team was there to kind of fix this. And you know what I noticed that they needed? They needed software to help them manage this project. I was doing a lot of Excel stuff, but then like for some things I ended up like doing VB scripts. I made like an Access database to help manage certain tasks. I don't remember specifically what they were, but there were all these complicated pieces of paperwork that they needed to keep track of. And I started writing software in the department to help them do that. But anyway, working there was really inefficient. It was good for where I was at that point in my career, but it wasn't a great workplace. You know, I was happy to work in Chicago, just living the city life, but I didn't really enjoy what I was doing every day. It was kind of monotonous. So that job just was kind of a dead end. And then I got a call from a recruiter that had what was called an implementations role. And this was a little bit between business and a little bit technical. And what that role was, it was for another healthcare company that sold a pharmaceutical data product. So this company, they have all this information on various drugs, and it's like the data about the drugs that gets loaded into IT systems, like the one at the company I was already working at. This was a data broker, basically. What the implementations role was it was a tier 2 help desk sort of role, where I would be helping customers write the SQL queries and stuff to make use of this data so that they could find things like allergy interactions between drugs. It would be partly communication skills, talking to other enterprise clients, but having the technical knowledge of how to maneuver around a very complex database. So I switched jobs, I moved to that company. And once again, I started writing software because there was a lot of need for them to do additional things in the department. One of the things that I did to automate the job that I had, I wrote in C#.net an application that automatically built the load scripts for the things that we frequently had to do for the customers. So basically there was an onboarding setup where customers, they would get the data product, but then they need to put it into their database. And there was a repeated series of steps that we would have to do on the implementations team each time. And part of it was on the customer's burden to do, but part of it, like we had to write the import scripts ourselves. And I was like, you know what? I could just write an application that you have a bunch of checkboxes, you click what tasks you want done, and then it will generate the script for you. And the script is the same every single time. I wrote that application, and yeah, I was back to writing software, I guess. Writing applications. Basically, writing software turned out to be a really useful skill. And I got kind of fed up with the businessy baloney type of stuff and all the meetings and things with clients. And I just enjoyed writing the code. Well, I guess I enjoyed the peacefulness of writing the code. I wanted to do more coding sort of stuff and be a full-time software developer. It was about that time I picked up Ruby on Rails. So I was doing that in the evenings in my free time. Went from Wall Street finance to corporate finance, doing a little bit of computer stuff, to implementations work, where it's a little bit more computer stuff, a little bit less businessy. And then I was going to make the leap to web development, which is full coding. My first attempt at trying to be a software engineer full-time Ruby on Rails was around 2013. And I switched jobs to another company. I dumped the implementations jobs, and I was able to know enough about Ruby on Rails to get hired for a Ruby on Rails mid-level developer job by that time. And so I took that role and I got fired right away. The reason I got fired was because the manager at that company was a complete idiot that had the budget to hire a Scrum team, but he didn't have approval for the project yet. So I got hired with like 5 other people. We were waiting for the work to come, and they just had us doing like internal baloney work for the company for 3 months. There were no project requirements coming. The promised project that was supposed to keep us all busy was not happening, and we were just like twiddling thumbs. And one evening, my boss, the guy who hired me, my manager, asked me to stay later in the evenings because he wanted to impress the executives down the hallway. And I just totally lost it. And I went off on him and told him how fed up I was with his management, that we don't have a project. When's the project going to come? No, I'm not staying here later. And he fired me the next day. That was rough getting fired, and it really shattered my confidence. At that time, I had some money saved up, and I was doing a lot of work following stocks at the time, on the side at the time in the evenings, and trying to trade. One thing that I never got the opportunity to do was to trade stocks during the workday because I was always busy working. And I wanted to give a try at day trading and see if I could get rich doing that, and then I wouldn't have to worry about the corporate baloney anymore. So for about a year, I gave it a shot, day trading. Lost a lot of money that way. That's a whole other story, another video. But day trading didn't work out for me. What happened during that time, though, when I was day trading, I wasn't letting my programming skills rot. I continued to write software, but to help me with my day trading. So I wrote stock scanning applications in Ruby on Rails. I wrote an API gem that connected to the TD Ameritrade API and digested data to help me scan for stocks. I think if I had like another year, I probably could have been successful as a full-time day trader, but I had a family at the time, and the pressure of being the provider for a family and trying to day trade, not knowing how much I'd make for the day, it just would mess with my psychology too much. And I wasn't making good trades, good enough to make the scale that I needed and to have the success rate that I needed to make that sustainable. I was continuing to write things to enhance my trading in Ruby on Rails. And when it came time for me to call it quits on the day trading, I learned a lot more than I did when I started the job with the crummy project that never came. This was up to 2015 now. The economy was recovering from the financial crisis, and there were more jobs available. So you could actually have like an almost junior level of experience at that time, reach out to a headhunter and actually get a response. Ruby on Rails was really hot in 2015. My skills were in demand, and I actually got several interviews. I interviewed at a company. They flew me out to California. I got to interview at a California company, also some in Indiana as well. I got another interview for a company in Chicago that was called Avant, and they are a financial firm that issues credit. They issue loans to consumers. So I interviewed with them, and in the interview, I go in there and they start asking me like Ruby on Rails questions. I have my little MacBook with me. The MacBook, like in the middle of the interview, starts talking, and it's my price alert system. So like this thing, like the MacBook connected to the Wi-Fi when I was there. I forgot that my stock program was running in the background, and it started giving stock alerts in the interview about new highs and stocks that are trading out of volatility ranges and stuff. And it was a pretty good laugh because I had it connected to like an audio thing where it would do the voice synthesizer. So we had a pretty good laugh. I was, it's my stock alerts. It's my program. So I whipped out my MacBook and I showed him my stock program and the Ruby on Rails code that's connecting to the Ameritrade API and doing the stream and everything like that. So I got to walk through like the actual code I wrote in that interview. By the end of that, the guy interviewing me said, "Well, you're a Ruby developer." That felt good. That was a good compliment. Then the next step in that interview process was they wanted me to do a couple of demo applications. Man, like today, if somebody asked me to do demo application, I probably wouldn't spend too much time on it. I mean, they weren't too bad. They were really short. They gave me a choice of like 4 different types of programs I could work on, and I picked 2 accounting related ones. So this is where that financial stuff from college came in handy. You know, I was really into the accounting and the financial accounting. Really came in handy for me at Avant because I understood how loan amortization works. I built the little sample demo applications. I did one in Angular.js, and then I think I did some other database little sample thing in Ruby on Rails. And they liked the work that I did, so I got hired. And then I was hired as a mid-level developer at Avant. And then within a few months, they gave me a promotion to the senior level developer. And I was, I think I was making 6 figures at the time. So that's my story of how I became a software engineer. So I think a few important takeaways from that was that in the early days of me learning how to code, I had several mentors, I would call them, who kind of pushed me along and sent me in the right direction. It started with my friend Rodrigo writing that stuff on the crumpled piece of paper. That's where it all began. It just took that little bit of inspiration to show me a new thing, opened up my mind to the new idea of what I could do, and then I got to see the possibilities. But then I also had other mentors like my dad telling me about Bill Gates. That encouraged me, and Fred Huddleston, who ran that NavOps program. He got me access to the development tools. So Borland Delphi, I wouldn't have been able to play with that if I didn't meet Fred. And then that scholarship, having that opportunity with the internship was a big boost for me. So I didn't do this alone, but I think the important thing is what I did with those opportunities. I was a very obsessive learner, and I was really driven to start my own business, and at all times saw the coding as a means to an end. So I know a lot of people in this industry, they like having debates on like the best way to write a JavaScript syntax or something like that. They like to talk about that stuff, but for me, like, I just see it as like a tool, like it's my paintbrush. It's the medium that I'm using to create something else that other people are going to consume. Having that end goal in mind is something that always kept me going. And it also made me a lot more versatile because I was able to change career directions. It just so happened that the paths that I kept falling back into were software related because that's where the market was. That's where the skills were needed. That's where people needed products developed, and I was able to do that. That desire to learn and adapt to make myself useful. So anyway, that's my story. I hope you find it to be useful in building your own coding path and your own career journey. If you like it, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'd be happy to do more videos like this one. See you next time.